Alright, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com video presentation. So we have our next Wikipedia style subject. I guess I'll do these until Wikipedia stops me from doing it, which is in all likelihood what's going to happen, because they're tyrants and bullies and don't care about science and the truth, and they like to slander the greatest scientist in the history of mankind, Isaac Newton. But anyway, so it's just so hard to decide what the next subject would be because all these pages are crap. And so the work page has the infamous, force times distance nonsense in it. That force times distance decides how much energy something has, when, of course, it's force times time that decides how much energy something has. So they have it wrong. All their physics is based on a wrong premise. They just won't fix it. So anyway, the second paragraph I will read because it's rubbish. So I'll illustrate it. For example, when a ball is held above the ground and then dropped, the work done, so that's in watts or joules, by the gravitational force on the ball as it falls is positive. Like there's such a thing as negative work, which is just too silly. Negative energy. And is equal to the weight. So they said the weight of the ball. Now we all know they shouldn't be saying the weight of the ball, right? And then they say, and they should be saying the mass of the ball. And but they say the weight of the ball a force. So they're calling weight a force. So they're conceding that how much something weighs decides how much force it can apply. And obviously Newton stated there's an equality between the force and velocity, and therefore force and momentum, and therefore force and weight. Alright, so clearly not true right there. Okay, multiplied by the distance to the ground, a displacement. So again, they're saying that 4 times the height is 4 times the energy, when you're only in the gravity twice as long. And it's 9.8 meters per 1 second, 1 unit of time. Alright, if the ball is thrown upwards, the work done by the gravitational force is negative, which is this baby talk, and is equal to the weight multiplied by the displacement in the upwards direction. So again, just nonsense. It doesn't work that way. It's not the truth. It's not accurate. It's not right. There is no evidence for it. Blah, 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 blah. So I guess we might as well go to my talk page here. Talk page. Okay, and so I have posted, but hopefully it's still there. Here we go. No experimental evidence for the claims made. The second paragraph provides an example for which I claim there is no verifying experimental evidence. Gravity provides a force of 9.8 meters of velocity per every 1 second. That's what Newton actually said. Galileo proved that in 1 unit of time you get 1 unit of distance, and in 2 units of time you get 4 units of distance. His famous 1, 3, 5, 7 recognition of the truth. Obviously, if you add the 1 and the 3, you get a 4. If you add the 1, the 3, and the 5, right, you get a 9, square root 3. Right, you add the 7, 5, and the 3, 16, blah, blah, blah. 4 units of distance is only 2 units of time, and only 2 units of applied force. Please link me to physical experimental evidence that 4 times the height produces 4 times the work done in watts or joules. So show me an experiment where they actually measure the impact and demonstrate that twice the velocity is 4 times the watts or joules of impact. Or concede the paragraph is junk physics and needs revision. Alright, I just provide the link to, I provide the text that I claim is nonsense. So we'll see what we get. Yeah. It's probably going to be funny. I mean, if nothing else, it'll be a little bit funny. Because now they're going to be desperate again. They have to stop me from telling the truth. So they'll have to go to some sort of antics, you know, some sort of bizarre bullshit, you know. So anyway, so the simple argument is, you know, I made it over and over again. So understand, Newton said 9.8 meters of velocity per 1 unit of time, 1 second in this case. So each second you get 9.8. If you use 2 seconds, then it's 19.6. If you use a half second, it's 4.9. So this number changes if you change this second. You can't alter the seconds. So saying 9.8 meters per second squared, okay, per second squared, can't mean anything. This square can't mean anything because this has to be 1 second. Can't be any other number, or you have to change the 9.8. The 9.8 is only true for units of 1 second units. If it's in some other denomination besides 1 second units, the 9.8 is meaningless. So there is no squared. Newton never said it, never wrote it. It's not Newton's mechanics. They just lie, okay, and slander Newton, the greatest scientist in the history of humankind, and they slander him with nonsense he didn't say. All right. So the simple truth is, okay, when you drop something 1 unit of distance, it only goes 4.9 meters in 1 second. All right. So let's just say I put it at a height where it drops 4.9 meters in 1 second. And then I take it and I make it 4 times the height. Okay. It's automatic. We already know this is 4.9. Can't be anything else in 1 second. It's automatic. Okay. Can't be anything else. Has to be the same as this. So this is this. So we know whatever velocity we have here, which is 9.8, we know we have it here, 9.8. And we know the distance is only 4.9 though, right? So we know we have a 9.8 velocity now. We had a 0 velocity here, a 0 velocity here. We now have 9.8. This one hits the ground, so it ain't going to go anywhere. It ain't going to gain anything else. It's done. Okay? It now dispensed the 9.8 it collected. It just smashed it into little pieces. It moved. This one still has its velocity. It still possesses the force. Okay? It still has the virus, the chicken pox of the force, let's call it. And it's going 9.8. So what's going to happen in the next second? Well, we know in the next second, this is going 9.8. It's already going 9.8. So it's going to go here without gravity doing anything. So if I killed gravity and there was no more gravity, so right here, I stopped gravity from existing, right at this point. It's still going 9.8. The next second, it's going to do this whether there's a gravitational force or not. So without the force, that is, minus g, okay, no force, okay, no gravitational force pushing it, it's going to get to here. And now what we were saying is oh, well, it's 1 second more, so it's going to get another 4.9 here, okay, and it's going to gain 9.8, so now it's going to be going 19, jeez, whatever, dyslexic, blah, 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 who cares? So we know that's all that happened. This is all it got from gravity in the second. This is all it got from gravity in the first second. It just gets the 4.9 meters and it gets the velocity increase. That's what actually happens. Okay, that's the actual factual truth. So it's only going twice the velocity. It only took twice the time, and it only weighs twice as much. So they say weight is force. Well, it only weighs twice as much. Therefore, it can only produce twice the force. It only has twice the weight. Twice the weight, twice the force. Not 4 times the force, twice. So they just said there's an equivalency between weight and force right in their own document. So the argument should be over. So again, they don't understand gravity at all. Okay, physicists don't understand the simple concept of 9.8 per 1 second. Okay, not any number of seconds, not seconds squared, 1 fucking second. All right, so this really shouldn't have to be argued. Now I could do I'll do the rolling ball example just because it's gravity. Gravity is completely in control of friction. Ground friction is completely controlled by gravity. All right, so another thing where you're saying, oh, you mean physicists are too stupid? They can't understand what you're saying? They're so fucking dumb? So let's say I did have a brick wall and I dropped something next to the brick wall. Obviously, if it's not touching the wall won't do anything, it just falls. So I put it close enough so it's barely touching the wall. Well, it's just going to bounce off the first little piece of stuff and it's going to end up being, it's not going to be touching the wall anymore. So without a force, so let's just say I apply a wind, okay, and the wind blows the ball into the wall. Now the ball is going to create friction because now there's a force pushing it into the wall. So now the ball is going to drop really slow because there's a wind pushing the ball into the wall surface and causing more and more friction, and it's losing energy as it falls, so it never gains its 9.8. It keeps losing velocity to the wall, so it drops much slower. Okay, and because it's dropping much slower, it's in the gravity longer, and so it's even more crap it can do to the wall. It'll do even more abrading of the wall because it has more time to collect more gravitational force. All right, so on the ground, right, you have to just understand that it's exactly the same argument. There's just no difference in the sense that gravity now is the wind. And let me make this line a little shorter. So we know what happens. We take a ball and we roll it with 1v. So they have the same mass. I'm just going to roll one with 2v and one with 1 velocity. All right, a simple experiment. And we know it just runs out of energy. So it rolls, okay, roll, 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 and then stops. Okay, so we know it stops here. It's dead. Okay, so we gave it velocity, and we know it stopped. And we know the only reason why it stopped is because it lost all of its energy to the ground. The ground absorbed it all. Okay, and the fact is it absorbed it disproportionately. It didn't absorb it linearly. It absorbed less of it the faster it was going. So when it was going fast, it absorbed less. The slower it starts going, the more it absorbs. The line is like this, the friction line. More friction, the slower you're going. The more contact with the ground. The more the wind can affect you, the slower you're moving. You go through the paint sprayer fast, yeah, no paint. You go through it slow, lots of paint. All right? And it's just a logical, unimpeachable fact that we know when this one goes 1 velocity, we know where it has to do it. It doesn't have a choice. It has to go 1 velocity here. Okay, 3/4 of the way down the track. There's no choice. This is all one. This is what 1 velocity looks like. And when this does 1 velocity, it's exactly the same experiment. This here will be exactly the same experiment as this experiment. I'll have a ball rolling with 1v, okay, and it will slowly, okay, lose its velocity and stop. So we know that's where 1/2 the velocity is. Kind of obviously not linear. Kind of obviously not here in the middle where it's supposed to be, right? So clearly this, something different happened. And frankly, it's not different. Galileo explained it, okay? So the same thing happened that's happening here. The faster it was going, the less it was losing to friction, and the slower it was going, the more it lost to friction. And in this entire hunk of distance is exactly the same time as this. Exactly the same amount of time as this. 1 unit of time. 1 unit of time. 3 times the distance, only 1 unit of time. The heat gone into the ground here is exactly equal to the heat that went in the ground here, and exactly equal to the heat that went into the ground here. The force here, this F, exactly the same as this F, exactly the same as this F. Undeniable fact. Nothing I said here is inconsistent with any factual reality of how the world works. And they'll just keep telling me, we've proven otherwise with our non-evidence. We have zero evidence proving you wrong. But we'll just say you are. You know, they'll say they're right, but they won't prove they're right. I have to prove it. They don't have to prove it. So it's the great double standard, the great duplicity of the scientist. Okay, again, they shouldn't be called scientists. They should just be called what they are. Bishops, popes, what other kind of ministers, preachers, ayatollahs. They're very much like ayatollahs. Yeah, and they just have no integrity, no honesty. They don't care about the truth, and they'll slander any physicist to sell their crap. They'll put Newton's name on crap Newton didn't say. Exactly the exact philosophy Newton opposed, and they'll claim it's Newton's physics when it isn't. Plainly, factually, isn't the truth. Alright, that's probably enough. So we'll see what Wikipedia does. But this will be the first video on the subject of their silly work equation. It's just nonsense. Distance is not going to decide how much work you do. This ball rolling twice the velocity only did twice the work to the ground. That's all, just twice the work. It didn't do 4 times the work. And if I made it 4 times the velocity, it's not going to do 16 times the work. And if I made it 10 times the velocity, it's not going to do 100 times the work. That's what their silly, nonsensical physics says. It's obviously stupid, it's obviously silly, and I shouldn't have a hard time convincing people that they know it's not true. You know it is not true that if you go 50 miles an hour, you're going to use 25 times, right? 25 times the fuel going 10 miles an hour. You know that doesn't happen. So why are you defending physics that says it does? You all should be so embarrassed. You really should be so embarrassed. All right. Why is this IP virtual cam? Why is that even there? What does that mean? Oh, I hate OBS. I don't hate OBS, but I mean, I hate when they put something stupid. They put some stupid button with some stupid label, and you're saying, what the fuck could that possibly mean?